Hello and welcome to another Ramon Foster Show, starring, not coincidentally, Ramon Foster. What's up, Ramon?
Not much. Do I have vacation days when it comes down to Ramon Foster Show? Like, can somebody sub in? Is that on? Are we doing that?
Speaking of subs, this program is brought to you by the Get Go Cafe and Market, where what they end up doing is they end up making really, really good subs anytime you order them on the touch screen there. All safe, all clean, open 24 hours a day. Can't beat it. Moan, let's talk a little bit about OTAs, which are going on this week, because this became something of a big issue with not just the Steelers, but all 32 teams, really. And trying to figure out a way to look. We're playing 17 games. There's going to be more injuries. There's going to be more banged bodies. There's going to be more everything. How about less of this? Meaning, And in your position as union rep, when you were with the Steelers, you had to fight some of these battles yourself here. What's it like to see the players fighting this new battle here? Because they do have to guard against the longer season.
They do have to guard against it, and it goes a long way when it comes down to preserving yourself. I know the masses would like to think that the guys should be on the job the entire time. If you're not training, you should be asleep. And if you're not asleep, you should at least be in the house. If you're in the house, you should probably be watching film. That's not how it works. Your what do you want to call it? Your piece that you have with the game is being able to do stuff that makes it able for you to actually play the game. We always hear the saying, the best ability is availability. And when you get down to overworking guys, not that Pittsburgh has ever been a place to have people overwork or anything like that, but sometimes with coaches, you run into some system, some organization from high school all the way up to the pros that if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And so that's where the conversation came in when guys were talking about boycotting OTAs, is because if for anything I need my downtime, I don't need football 24/7, 365 days a year. When it comes down to adding the 17th game, you want me to do 17 weeks and also not have any free time. But on the other side of that, you got to have it to where it's at least available to guys who actually need it, meaning young guys, years 1 through 4 possibly, and for guys who just want it also. I'm sure Cam is a guy that wants to be in the building. Ben is a guy that wants to be in the building. That's what you run into. And if you scrap the whole thing, you got to kind of ask yourself, well, what's next? I'm kind of on both sides of the fence when it comes to it. I think if there's anything to be laid down, it should be, or it could be, if they decide to work to this deal. Years 1 through 4. 1 through 4, why? It's because that's right before your next contract. You're either about to get your 5th-year option picked up as a first rounder, or if you're second round and beyond, it's time for us to start having conversations about a new contract if you make it to that point. And that should be available for the young guys when they come down to it, DK. That's how I've always kind of felt about it when we started having these conversations early 2020 before the CBA was signed, it was guys that didn't want to spend time in the cities that they played. Why? If I got an opportunity to pick between, let's say, LA and Green Bay, or even LA versus Pittsburgh, I'm going to probably want to train in LA if I'm afforded that. If I'm a guy that understands how to be a real pro, why do I have to come in town and show face to check a board to get a check mark?
Well, let me play a little devil's advocate here for you, because one of the things that you hear, this is really common to hear from fans, and that is, all right, listen, team started out 11-0 last year, finished up 1-5. Come on. Just show up. Do you want to get better, or do you want to not get better? Come on, Moan. Seriously, you lost to Cleveland in the playoffs. You lost at Cincinnati. Are you serious or not about turning this team back into a winner?
I think this is the thing. Guys don't walk into a system, into a season, and say, I want to lose. That whole cliche of you should be a better pro or you need to do this, you need to do that. I know some guys that were terrible practice players, and they still got reps in practice. But in the game, you didn't even recognize them because they were so doggone great. It's winning and losing comes down to sometimes it might not just be your day. I think that last playoff game against the Browns wasn't their day. There was a few plays that happened early on where it fell off the cliff of the earth. That's sports. You can be playing against the number one ranked team in college, and you'll have an unranked team, Appalachian State, knock them off their rocker. That's how the game goes. But when we're talking about the well-being of the guys, that's what we got to separate ourselves from. Is we're looking at how guys handle their free time. Do you take your job home with you at 8 o'clock at night? Some do, but on the majority of the time, you don't. Your performance this time of the year, I don't think necessarily runs into the season. I think, yes, you can go in and get a refresher, get your feet underneath you, show that, you're a step better than you were last year. But if I can have my time, DK, because it was around July 25th to 28th when camp starts, for the most part, unless you're playing in a Hall of Fame game. When that time starts, you're never off. I promise you. And I'll say this too for the fans that, say, why don't you want to get better and that type of thing. When I played, I was never off. That's just how it was. Like, even in the off season when I was going to Disney or we would go to Hawaii or just doing stuff with the kids, everything revolved around what I had to do. So if I have an opportunity to not go into my city until late May or late June for mini camp or middle of June for mini camp, I would have loved to have had that luxury. But the fact that when the season ends, I'm taking about 2 to 3 weeks off. And before the Super Bowl, I'm starting back up. And even when I'm down and let's say I go on a guy's trip with somebody, I'm still trying to find a gym to train. I'm still trying to find somewhere I can do cardio because that's what the job has for you. That's what it demands of you also. So and I realized this also when I finally had the conversation with the Steelers and I was like, I'm retiring. DK, I had what felt like the world lifted off of my shoulders when I said that they had understanding of what I was saying and I had understanding of what I was saying. It wasn't until after I got off the call, I'm sitting outside, DK, and I just breathed. I was like, this is what I've been carrying since the 7th grade, since 1996. Since 1997, 98. I have been carrying football on my shoulders, on my mind since 1998. So for people that say you need to be a pro and you need to go in and get better, those guys are never off. Yeah, somebody might get arrested. They might have a situation where you see them out in the club. But I guarantee you, if you see them out in the club and they've probably been drinking and having a good time, they're trying to find a steam room the next day. They're trying to get hydrated because they got to go do the job again. I understand where the coaches come from in this also is I want to coach my guys. I need to see my guys. I need to see where they're at. There's two sides of it. And I say this to the point of what I brought up earlier. There needs to be some give and take when it comes down to if your years 1, 2, 3, and 4, you go in. When you learn how to be a true pro, you move out. And truth be told, this pandemic kind of exposed a lot. Yeah. There were no OTAs. There was no mini camp.
No.
There was abbreviated camps for guys. And I think when you look at guys that went through it, they kind of were like, I don't need all of that.
No, this worked just fine.
I love
that
Cam.
From everybody.
I love Cam. But seeing Cam in OTAs and organized team activities, Cam and I still went hard. So if you can take a little bit off and you have guys rested up for those last 6 games of the season where you go 1-5, I take that route.
No question about that. I have a hard time disputing any of that, although I sure did have fun at your expense there with the devil's advocate thing.
You would.
When we come back, who really is WR1 on this roster? Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show, brought to you by the Get Go Cafe and Market. Ramon, WR1 on this football team can take a lot of different forms because it's easy to escape the argument by saying, well, listen, Juju Smith-Schuster's he's a slot receiver. Is he really WR1? Is he your principal target? Well, no, of course not. Deontay Johnson's your principal target since he was the one who was targeted the most. But ducking all that, and I know, in the locker room and in the team's mentality, there is a WR1. Yeah. Ben himself has said that it's Juju, but things are subject to change. Who is it really?
If you're asking me who I think WR1 is, I think it's Deontay.
Oh, okay.
I do. Deontay's targeted the most, yes. Was Juju out a few games last year?
He missed a little bit of time, but mostly he was banged up. It seems to me that their playmaker goes through Deontay. That's not slighting Juju. That's not saying he's not as important. It might be 1A, 1B. However you look at it, I think Deontay goes first. I just saw a list from Pro Football Network who had the top 25 wide receivers in the NFL. Deontay was on that list. Mm-hmm.
Juju wasn't. I think league-wide, it goes towards Deontay. It goes towards a guy that they know that can be very special. They've seen some things from him. He has big play capability. The biggest knock on Juju is we hadn't seen that big play capability in, I don't think, like 2 years.
That's correct.
And that's because, I mean, it was hard last year. It was just different. He was in and out of games. The year before, Deontay was still getting some targets his way. And that year was just kind of weird. But if we're looking at the way it shaped up, I hate to go this route, DK, but if he was wide receiver 1, free agency would have said that also.
Yeah, that's the thing here is the money talks. The money talks.
He was being shopped like a number 2. The numbers Pittsburgh gave him to come back, and true enough, it was more money than I made in 1 year, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I covered the team here in Nashville, the Titans. Corey Davis got paid $13 million to go to the Jets. He was a number 2 here. I think they're paying him like a number 1, but truth be told, that's number 2 money when we talk about wide receiver cashing in.
It is. Yeah.
A number 1 is 19 and above right now, right? 18, 19 and above for a number 1.
It's in that range. It depends on the number range. 1. Yeah.
But and I know we had a weird year as far as the cap goes, but I thought he was going to cash in about 16 or more. And now what did he get, 8 or 9?
He got 8. Yep.
He got 8. Again, more than I made. If he heard this and he was like, well, Ramon, that's my defense is the market said you got paid like a number 2. Deontay has a whole lot of talent, and so does Juju also. Ben is going to feed Juju also because he's his blanket also. Juju's a guy that's going to get the ball. He's proven more with Ben than Deontay has. And I won't say Ben owes that to him, but Ben's going to go to where butters his bread. The thing is, it depends on what Matt Canada says is the number 1 guy on this offense with the way the offense is designed. Another guy that's throwing a wrench in this is Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
He has capability too.
He does, and he's interesting in that he's not just your what was the old Mike Wallace term, the one-trick pony?
The one-trick pony.
No. Well, but he's not that. Chase has done a lot of things, including running the ball off the line of scrimmage, which I don't have to tell you, in the wide zone blocking scheme that Matt Canada wants to employ, finding that wide receiver who can do the end around, who can do the reverse, and properly read those holes and hit them. Mm-hmm. Chase Claypool was able to hit those holes with a seeming effortlessness, and that's not a shot. But whenever the Steelers were getting down inside the 10-yard line or whatever, instead of just lining up and doing this, they would say, "Where's Chase?" And Chase would do the thing, and then he'd kind of see something, and then it looked like there was nothing there, but he would just kind of do the old the Eddie George fall forward thing,
Yeah.
Another Tennessee reference. but he'd get into the end zone and you're like, oh, that was cool. How'd he do that?
Exactly. And that's where Juju's kind of running into it. And I think that's the way the market kind of looked at him too. Well, you had two other guys on your team that the ball went through more. They have more playmaking excitement than he does. I love Juju, and I think he's a really good talent. I just don't know if he's a number one on this team just yet. And it's all got to sift itself out.
Well, let's get real about Juju first and then Deontay. Where Juju is concerned, and you and I have talked about this, and you just referenced a little bit ago that his explosiveness that he had 2-3 years ago was what made him a separator. It's what got him onto that Super Bowl 100 commercial.
Also, Pro Bowl. Didn't he make Pro Bowl?
The whole deal.
Yeah, so I salute him in all of that. 100%.
Sure. And he looked like he was going to be a significant impact player for a long time. And then those explosive plays stopped. And whenever you'd give him those little slants or whatever, they didn't go very far. Now, he had, at least that we know of, is in the past tense, the knee issue.
Yes. He
kept having this thing drained every Friday. This is not something that a lot of people know about. And he didn't have that push. He didn't. And when you lose that one little, something in football, you can't compensate for it. You can't manufacture it.
No, you cannot. And if he was injured, that's one thing. The sad thing is for him is Deontay still played well last year, relatively, considering, all things about the offense. The ball was going through him. He was the one that was making the big plays. And I'll never knock a guy for being injured, but I know it's one game of somebody else being in there that's brand new, and everybody falls in love with them. Again, he'll be number one in Pittsburgh when it shakes down, when Ben gets his opportunity to feed him the ball, because Ben is that type of guy. He's going to make sure his guys in the contract year, which Juju is in, gets paid, and I love that about Ben. It's also him being a number one also depends on the way the national media and the other 31 teams view him. The way the 31 teams viewed him this offseason wasn't double-digit millions of dollars. And I think he'll get it in a reset market with the cap going up. But there'll be a number in which you'll see a one, and then you'll potentially what he may get. And I hope he gets number one money, because I love you. He's a great kid. He's a hard worker, all those type of things. But on this team right now, it looks like it's more towards Deontay or Chase.
Well, let's talk about Deontay, too, because in addition to the positive stats that he had, he also led the NFL in drops with 15. Yes. And, this doesn't make sense. When you watch him dropping the football, this isn't like watching some, iron-handed guy who's used to having things clang off of them. Deontay's got the softest, smoothest hands.
Yeah.
And then he had that one spell, and you remember it. He got benched up in Buffalo for the whole second half. And you're thinking, what is wrong? There's something going on here, mental or whatever. But how do you explain that? I mean, everybody has their hitches. Everybody has their hiccups. I'm sure you had them in your position.
Had mine too.
In your position, where you just lost confidence for a spell. And maybe that's harder for us to see watching football casually. We're not going to say, boy, the left guard sure looks like he's struggling today. Yeah. It's not as easy to pick out.
But you're right about that. Deontay comes down to a technical sense for him. He's a guy who's explosive, and you see that and notice that also, do you not?
Yeah.
So with a guy like him, he's in a rush to get the ball to make a play. I think if he slowed down for just a millisecond, he gets the ball and he goes. If you look at him, it's not like he's missing the ball. It looks like he's looking to go already.
He's doing this.
He's doing that because he knows the athlete that he is. And that's what's so special about it. That's why guys salivate over a guy like him who you get out of Toledo. Is that where he came from?
It is, yes.
In the third or fourth round?
He was second.
Second round. Why does a guy from Toledo go second round?
Yeah, right.
that tells you a lot about what they think his athletic ability is and what his potential
a lot of that was the late Coach Drake. A lot of that was that Coach Drake ended up really, really becoming smitten with him, and that's to Coach Drake's everlasting credit.
It is. But to those points, Deontay can take the top off. He can also go across the middle. He can also be a possession wide receiver where he gets it and go 10, 12 yards, 15 yards or longer. That's what you like about him. He's young. He's agile, and he's a tough-minded young guy. A lot of people always try to, we have our measuring stick, and in my era of when we played right now, it's not that far ago, that long ago. My era, but AB is that measuring stick for any young receiver that's coming in, especially that body type. Deontay reminds you of some of those things that he possessed. That's the beauty of why you kind of look at him as like WR1 with Deontay, and it sucks because Juju's in his friggin' contract year.
Yeah, well, I humbly propose here that we have a new rule here on the Ramon Foster Show.
I'm listening.
That we are never permitted to talk about wide receivers without mentioning James Washington. We cannot pretend that he doesn't exist. I can't continue this discussion.
I love James.
I know you do, and so do I. And we have to talk about him because what is his next level, Moan? What is it going to take to get him on the football field, even if that's as WR4?
He's a 2, easy. Depending on, he's a 2. I look at him, he's a great Robin as of right now.
What do you mean?
If we look at the way the NFL is built now, everybody has a 1 and a 2. You can't have just one guy because one guy gets shut down really, really fast. Look at Tampa.
Oh, you meant Robin as in Batman and
Robin.
Okay.
He's going to be and Robin gets the perks. Robin gets to ride in the car. Robin probably has his own bat cave. He has all of those things. Okay? James Washington will be a great Robin, and he might prove me wrong and be a number 2 or a solid 3. A number 1 or a 3. But as the way I view him, if given the opportunity, the thing is Pittsburgh has a bad problem. You want me to tell you what that problem is? They're able to find young wide receivers that can play early, and they find them every single draft. So if you don't get on the field early or you have a mishap here or there, you're going to have a Chase Claypool to come up behind you and be like, well, what about James Washington? And that's where we are every single time with James. The thing is you got to look at Chase also. He's pushing himself up to is he number 1? I mean, the same thing that Deontay is doing to Juju, Chase is doing to Deontay. Meanwhile, you got James Washington right behind him who are like, what about me, guys?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of view James Washington as the reason I'm obsessed because I covered his team here was Corey Davis. You knew the potential was there. And when you finally get that opportunity of not having 4 solid wide receivers, then you see the potential of a guy like that. And some team's going to find him and get him in. No injuries, heck of an athlete, sure hands, can go up and get the ball vertical out of this world and explosive. The thing is, James might see his potential grow in a position in which Juju plays. That might be his biggest hiccup right now. Where he plays behind Juju.
That specific spot. Yeah, exactly. Well, at the same time, I think we can all presume safely that he'll get onto the football field and that he has to make the most of his opportunities when he does.
It sucks for him because he's a guy that's going to have crazy amount of talent and teams going to get him for super cheap because of his stat line.
Yeah, I hear you. When we come back to the Ramon Foster Show, a slice of life with Ramon. Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. This is our slice of life with Ramon segment, and I've been looking forward to this one. This topic specifically for a while. Ramon doesn't even know what it is.
I do not.
But see, here's what everyone needs to know. Ramon has a day job. Ramon does a radio thing in Nashville. And as such, as any radio person, you need to be a little bit versatile. Mm-hmm. You need to be well-versed in a lot of subjects. They don't just say, hey, Mr. Football Player, let's just talk about football all the time. So here we are in Nashville, Tennessee, where the only topic really of the day is what, Ramon?
Hockey.
Hockey it is. Oh, my goodness. And Ramon is tasked with becoming a commentator to an extent on the Nashville Predators.
I am, man.
So let's hear Ramon's views on hockey. And first of all, Ramon, if you had been a hockey player, since I know you've legitimately participated in a lot of different sports, what position would you have liked to play?
Goalie, because I don't know how to skate.
See, the goalie already. I got to stop you. All coaches say that the goalie has to be your best skater.
Yeah, I know that, but the fact that at my size, I can just sit in front of the net and use my knees and go side to side. I can work on getting my hips loose, okay? You'll see me. I'll be the only goalie in history to go out to the net on my hands and knees, okay? I'll push off from the wall. DK. All right? Push off from the wall and just slide into the net. And I know it's got posts, so the net won't, so the goal won't move either. So I just shimmer myself into there.
I can't remember the character's name from Mighty Ducks, but they ended up the one huge kid, and they end up like just taping him to the net, like
exposed.
That's it. It's like there's like maybe you can shoot under the armpit or something, but you're not getting. This is maximum body coverage here.
Yes,
on the net. Now, on a semi-serious note, though, when you're in Nashville, that city has not won a championship.
No.
And it's hard for Pittsburghers to relate to that. We get frustrated. No, we get furious when we don't win one for like a year or two, okay, in any sport, but especially football and hockey, the cap leagues where we have more of a chance. People are like, where's our championship? Where's our championship? And in Nashville, it's different. And tell us a little bit about that, because I know if people have, I mean, they only have right now, the Predators and the Titans. There is MLS coming in. That's still
they got the Nashville Soccer Club,
right?
And there's also a minor league baseball team here too. It's a team that's starving and it's getting filled, okay, with a lot of transplants, okay. The city is buzzing.
It's growing. For anybody who doesn't know, Nashville is really growing.
If you haven't been here, the cowboy boots and honky tonk is here, but there's a lot of other stuff too. I put a poll question out there not too long ago. Have you ever met anybody who's come to Nashville and not have a good time? And hands down, it won. Like, every person that goes to Nashville has a good time. Absolutely. You've been here, and you've had a good time.
Well, I've come for work, but I've also for some of these trips, including just last year, I bring my wife down because it's like one of the better stops on the tour, and we know we're going to have, like you said, we're going to have a good time there.
So behind that good time is two sports teams.
Look I'm wearing the Johnny Cash Museum shirt. Yeah,
it's two teams that have, I'm talking about rabid fan base. They want to win. They enjoy it, but they're also scarred too, DK. In the sense of they've gotten close with the Predators. They've gotten close a while back. No, recently with the AFC Championship with the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
But they hadn't crossed that line. They have not crossed that line, and they're obsessed about trying to get to that point. So much so when I started this job at 104.5 The Zone, they hated me because I'm a Pittsburgher. Like, I live here, but all my adult life was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I played for the Steelers, who, as you said, have won.
Yeah.
So here I am, a guy coming from this cocky organization. I didn't win one, but I played in one. Who's talking about their team that hasn't won one yet. And they take it to heart. They take everything to heart. They're gung-ho about it, man. That's the reason when you come here to Nashville, either to a Titans game or to a Preds game, I love Hinesville, and that is probably the best place to be. Playoff hockey and PPG, one of the best also. But when you come to Nashville and see a Preds game at Bridgestone,
no, it's a different animal, man.
it's like mixing Pittsburgh and New Orleans together.
It's college is what they do.
Because Revolve's team here too.
Well, what I was going to say is that when the Predators were formed, when they joined the NHL back in 2000, one of the smart things that their management did at the time was they set aside one full section of that arena in the upper deck for nothing other than Vandy students because they wanted them to do those chants at the beginning. You know, when they announce the goalie and somebody yells out, "Sucks!"
Yeah.
Okay, well, it makes for a college atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And that never left the place. And when you're watching the Preds in their playoff games now and you're seeing the crowd standing through the whole thing, they stand through the whole thing. That's not happening anywhere else in the NHL, Moan.
No. And to your point, it's because in a city like Pittsburgh, it has multiple championships, and recently it's expected there.
Yeah, you've been there, to use the old Chuck Noll term. Act like you've been there, you know?
Yeah. But here, realizing how this fan base is, and the thing is, like right now they're up against Carolina Hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina is picked by a lot of people to win this series. Carolina is also picked by a lot of people to win the cup.
Win it all, yeah.
And so you have a team who's an underdog who's tied up this series. And not only that, they think they can win. And if you give them if you tell any fan here that they can't, they'll want to fight you. Simply because of that point that you said, they're starving for a ring. They're starving for a parade down Broadway, and it's passionate. Sometimes it's unreal with the expectations about what it's going to take. And I've been trying to preach that on air sometimes about what it takes to have a championship football team. The big story that's circling around right now is where will Julio Jones go?
Yeah, right.
And this morning on our show, I had to break it down. Like, look, here in Pittsburgh, we didn't really sign guys like Julio because when you have a stable organization, you develop from within, you sign and try to keep as many guys as you can. But when you have GMs and coaches like Coach Tomlin and Kevin Colbert that know how to draft, know what you need, you don't look outside your room. And right now they're trying to look outside their room to sign a big name guy like Julio Jones. And the thing is this, they got guys like Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, Bud Dupree now, Janoris Jenkins, Danico Autry. They got a bunch of guys under their cap that they got to take care of. And when you're a good team, you don't have money to play around like that. That's the reason Pittsburgh doesn't sign big-time free agents unless they're past their pass.
No, they want to keep their guys. Yeah, they want to pay TJ and Minka.
Exactly. Or you pay a guy like Flozell when Dallas doesn't want him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You pay a guy like you bring Plexico back or you bring Vic in. You bring in guys like that because you have your nucleus. You have your means of doing work. You have your means of doing business, and you work around that. Pittsburgh's all the way up against the cap. Why? Because you have quality guys in-house. And that's one thing I was trying to, relate to them. If you want to be this team that's on the national scale, on the national, what do you want to call it? Be a national brand.
Yeah, stage. Yeah.
Get used to not getting the big name free agents. But when you're an organization like the Titans or the Press who's starving for their championship, every hot name belongs to you.
Oh, yeah.
Because that person is going to be the person to get you over the threshold, i.e. Jadeveon Clowney, Vic Beasley.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
And right now with the with the Preds and the Kane series, you can't tell them they're not going to win it, even though you, DK, a hockey aficionado, you know that the Canes are supposed to win.
I do know, and I also know that Nashville has some talent on that roster and everything else. All I know is that I want to hear the Ramon hockey commentary at some point on 104.5 The Zone.
Solid.
I'm convinced that an offensive lineman in football could break down anything.
I'm getting there
and watch a chess match between Karpov and Kasparov and say, all right, here comes the next move. Here it comes.
I'm learning. It's like I'm like a high schooler watching NFL film right now. I got a long way to go, but I'm getting there. I promise.
But you know what? Once you figure out offside, Moan, it's all skating downhill after that.
I got offside. I know that one. I didn't understand the penalties and stuff, but okay.
What season?
The penalties. I guess you can grab somebody and stop them.
In the playoffs, you don't need to know anything about penalties. Playoffs, it's all good. That's what you need to know about playoffs and penalties. That's it. It's like, that decapitated the guy. Play on, fellas. Play on. We will have another episode of the Ramon Foster Show next week. Moan, be well.
You too, my man, my friend.